Is Doctor Who lecturing us on gender politics? So in this video I'm going to review the first Doctor Who episode I just saw, looking at it from a political perspective. So this episode, quite rightly, avoided any anatomical references to gender that you might expect from when a Time Lord regenerated into a different genre. For example, there was no boob grabbing or vagina jokes or anything like that. There was no kissing or flirtation. There wasn't even sexism or anything that referenced gender politics directly. However, there was a lot of empowerment, motivational type speeches, as you might expect from Doctor Who. The episode even went into male gender roles, in the crane driving character having to convince himself he's special, but mostly the whole episode felt very social, personal, but also very biological and alien. It got very personal with the way in which it dealt with the companions' stories, but also the score was very new age and trancey, the atmosphere was very dark, and the whole thing felt very alien and sci-fi. For me, there was a huge moment that required a lot of suspension of disbelief when the Doctor built her own sonic screwdriver. I don't know if this was a lecture on how women can be engineers, or if it was just simply there to move the plot along and give the Doctor her sonic screwdriver, but it felt a little bit forced. Some of the dialogue, especially in the opening scenes, felt very unnatural. It was a case of telling rather than showing. At the time, I assumed it's just because the show was made for kids, but as the episode went on, I realised that it was a very dark episode that 10 years ago the BBC might have even gotten complaints about because it was quite dark in places. Some people will point out that the diversity of the cast is in itself a lecture. A female police officer, many black and Asian actors. Again, I don't think it was per se. I almost feel it was irrelevant to the plot. But it is worth pointing out that the males of the episode seemed a lot weaker and more fragile than the females. The female companions were nurses and policewomen. The males were just insecure crane drivers, grieving mechanics, and dyspraxic cyclists. In the end, it's the males who survive to be the main characters for the rest of the series. And there was also a huge northern theme for the episode, centering in Sheffield, in Yorkshire, and focusing a lot of the settings on mechanical infrastructure. Again, this is a very stereotypical depiction of Northern England. So who is the Doctor now? Well, from what we can see in this episode, the Doctor is now more easily annoyed with people. We saw that in this episode, but also she's written with some funny one-liners. For me, the outstanding moment of Jodie's performance was at the funeral when she reacted to the death of the Nan character in a much more human, more Broadchurch drama-like way by simply saying nothing. The episode then dragged us into Doctor Who as she said some really more epic, grand statements about her role in the universe. So what is Doctor Who now? Well, Doctor Who isn't any longer a Saturday night rom-com, comedy, action flick it was in the Tennant days, nor is it some sci-fi brain puzzle it was in the Moffat days. It's more personal drama, almost taking it away from the time-travelling aspect Moffat used too much, and simply using time travel as a setting device for a Broadchurch BBC drama-style episode, where instead of criminals or bad guys, we have aliens. The train scene, by the way, wasn't anything like as tense as the one from Bodyguard. The shots pan a lot and the lighting's very dark and there's a lot more cold and grungy atmosphere. I've yet to see in this series as it progresses if this atmosphere and score will get slightly too depressing as the Doctor falls out with people and companions cry about their missing loved ones, or if it will stray into the interesting but stark realities of life in the universe. I'll give it 4 out of 5, and no, I don't think this episode was lecturing us directly. Might have been indirectly, but not directly. But do you agree with me? Join in the debate below, and subscribe.